Church is in the middle of a months-long battle with a local sign company. St. Luke's Church says it hired LED Liquidator to take down its old sign on 98th and Frankfort and install a new one, but that was in April.
KCBD News Channel 11's investigative reporter Shaylee Kidwell learned that this isn't the only company that has a complaint against LED Liquidator. Shaylee?
Karen and Abner, St. Luke's Church tells us they wrote LED Liquidator a $10,000 check as a deposit on a new sign that has yet to be installed. Now, as we were working to get answers for St. Luke's, we learned about a similar situation in Plainview. The owner of a small business there tells us he also paid LED Liquidator thousands of dollars for a sign he never received.
Will be the main order counter.
Monty Neal knows a thing or two about Texas barbecue.
What's your specialty?
Brisket for sure.
Neal wasn't even old enough to be a paid employee when his parents opened this takeout and catering restaurant.
We started Weekends Barbecue over on the other side of town. I believe it was 2006. I was in the 5th grade.
But that didn't stop him from learning the ropes.
There's pictures of me climbing on the smokers to, I couldn't reach it to get it all the way open.
Neal says he and his sister worked at Weekends Barbecue through high school and then moved away for college.
While we were in college, my mom was terminally ill, so my dad was taking care of, the business and her at the same time.
A few years ago, Neal moved home to take over the family business.
We started working on this new project down here to expand it into a full-time sit-down restaurant. It's really cool looking back and realizing, every screw and bolt in here that I've had something to do with it.
This is your baby.
It's my baby. It really is. There's a lot that's gone into it.
Neal says Jared Castillo with LED Liquidator contacted him about putting in a sign at the restaurant's new location.
He represented himself very well at first. We ended up making the payment up front and signing the contract, and the only thing left to do is put together the artwork.
Neal provided us with a copy of the contract dated August 26th, 2022. The total cost of the sign and installation, $3,646.50. While the delivery preference says rush, there's no estimated delivery date. On the actual contract itself, it doesn't have an estimated completion date, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, but he told you through text messaging about how long it would take?
We had discussed a 10-day time frame from the approval of the art.
Neal says he and Castillo went back and forth on the artwork for months, and a change ended up costing him an extra $351.81. Neal says he paid that on January 4th.
I paid him through PayPal. He said, okay, we're good to go. I'll have it to you in 10 days.
Neal says 10 days came and went, and still no sign.
We were doing our tax forms on the year, and I asked him for a W-9. He goes, no problem, I can pull it up and send it to you. And that was the last real communication I had with him. After that, he kind of just went totally radio silent.
By the end of February, Neal says he filed a dispute with PayPal, which Castillo did respond to.
Saying that it was a change of artwork fee and it couldn't be refunded. And I responded in saying, there's no sign, there's no product to begin with, so I don't know what he's changed. As far as I'm concerned, this is just a scam at this point. And they actually refunded that $350.
But Neal was still out roughly $3,000 and had no sign to show for it.
A few months later, I get a phone call from Signs on the Go out of Lubbock. They said, we've had these acrylic sign panels for several months now that Jared Castillo had made, and we haven't had any contact from him. We haven't heard from him. We're wondering if you still want these. I said, yeah, actually, I've been looking for those. We purchased the panels from them. He had not paid them either, so.
So then you had to pay for that sign again?
Yeah, it was an expense on top of what I'd already paid him for.
Neal says he filed a police report.
The detective called me and said, this is really going to be a civil matter going forward. So we spoke to our attorneys, and basically the consensus was that, for the amount of money we paid him for this sign, it was going to be kind of more, it's going to cost us more time and effort to try and get that amount of money back.
We called Jared Castillo. He declined to interview with us, but says he never authorized Signs on the Go to print the sign, and told us since Neal received a partial refund through PayPal, that made the contract null and void. We called Signs on the Go, but they claim Castillo did order the sign. He just didn't pay for it. As this incident played out in Plainview, St. Luke's Church began taking bids to replace this large LED sign in front of its South Lubbock campus. Tim Reese is a member here and volunteers on the church's Southwest Buildings Committee. He says he came across LED Liquidator.
It's one of those deals, we're looking back on it now, I'm like, but everything seemed on the up and up.
Reese provided a copy of the contract the church signed on April 25, 2023, for a total of $18,375.
So you pay $10,000 up front. It was a little over $10,000, and then the other $8,000 when the job was done.
Where did the $10,000 come from?
From the parishioners of the church, and that's what hurts me the most.
The contract also has the rush delivery box marked, but no estimated completion date.
He said it would take about 6 weeks for delivery at the time they're signing.
Reese says when they still didn't have a sign by June, he became suspicious.
Did you try calling him, and was he responsive?
We did, and he was at first, then it got to where he just wouldn't return the phone calls.
St. Luke's filed a police report and a complaint with the Better Business Bureau, which has now given LED Liquidator an F rating. Monica Horton with the BBB confirmed there are 2 open complaints against LED Liquidator.
The Better Business Bureau doesn't necessarily hold it against a company if they receive a complaint. We realize that you cannot make all of your customers 100% happy 100% of the time.
Horton says a company can improve its score if it responds to complaints and puts forth a good faith effort to resolve the issue.
Until we receive a response to these complaints, the BBB will maintain our F rating.
We called Jared Castillo on October 16th to find out what happened to St. Luke's sign and money. Castillo declined an interview, but told us the sign was being shipped from overseas and should arrive by the end of the month.
Is this Mr. Castillo?
We followed up with Castillo on Thursday, November 2nd. He declined to interview with us, but said the sign was on the way and should arrive that night or the following day. Castillo hasn't returned our phone calls this week.
We tried to track Castillo down here at the business address he has listed in those contracts, but we didn't find LED Liquidator. Instead, we found this cleaning company. The owner says she's leased this property from S&Z Properties for nearly 3 years. We contacted the owner of S&Z Properties. He tells us he evicted Castillo years ago.
The pastor of St. Luke's says someone with LED Liquidator texted him these photos on Monday, writing, "We are making the final touches on your sign." The pastor emailed a list of conditions he wants LED Liquidator to meet before he hands over the remaining $8,000. As of this afternoon, the pastor says Castillo hasn't responded to that email. In an earlier conversation with Castillo, he drew our attention to the fine print of the contract, which states, if the merchant refuses or avoids delivery of the sign for whatever reason, the merchant will be liable for the full purchase price of the sign, as well as all freight and storage charges, attorney fees, and all collection costs incurred. Reese says he can't believe they're in this situation.
I think it takes a special kind of person to want to do something like this to a church.
We will continue to try to get in touch with Jared Castillo and also follow up with St. Luke's Church, who is now working with an attorney. Monica Horton with the BBB offered these tips for consumers. Ask the company for references and actually call those customers. Don't just take the company's word for it. Never pay for services up front. If the company says it needs money for supplies and materials, she suggests the customer pay the supplier directly and then have everything shipped to them instead of the contractor, and get everything in writing. As we mentioned, those contracts don't include the estimated completion dates. I did call around to other shops in our area that sell and install those LED signs. They told me if I were to order an LED sign today, it would take about 6 to 12 weeks to be delivered. Karen and Amner.